Hello and welcome to the Farming Today podcast with me, Charlotte Smith. In this episode, why many residents are considering leaving Scotland's islands and rural areas. First though, a Lincolnshire farm with an uncertain future. Hannah Thorogood has spent 15 years building up an organic farm business with cattle, sheep and hens. She now runs the farm and a farm shop with her twin daughters. But Inkpot Farm, along with thousands of acres around it, is in the middle of a proposed site for a giant reservoir, as Rebecca Rooney reports.
So if we're standing here, Hannah, and we're talking about the plans for the reservoir, I can see the trees that you planted around the field, but it would be pretty much as far as the eye could see, the water.
Oh, way beyond that. It would affect 4,500 acres around here, of which we're right in the middle. There won't be a decision, a result, from the developmental consent order until 2030. So we've already lived under it for 3 years, and we've got another 5 years before we'll know whether this farm has a future or not.
And strategically, the government says we've not built a reservoir for 30 years. We need that national infrastructure. What's the answer if not a reservoir like this?
So one of the answers is we need to use less. There's a lot of re-education about water management that needs to happen. The other side is the whole landscape design, the landscape that we use. So we often see housing being built on flood meadows and people gravelling and tarmacking their driveways. So we need to rethink that in terms of water absorption. And then us farmers also need to play our part by reducing our compaction, by increasing our organic matter and reducing our chemical inputs. We can really hold much, much more water in our landscape.
This is such a lot to have hanging over you and your daughters, and yet you seem so positive. How are you managing to keep your pecker up like this?
Well, sometimes I don't. So, you have to be really realistic about mental health and farming. There are times I drive home and you can see the people digging up neighbours' farms for the surveying, and I've pulled over and just had a big cry. So it's not always okay. But the thing is we've got a planet to save, and we can do that through good farming, and we've got a nutritional crisis that we can turn around through good natural farming. To me, that's much more about what my life's about.
Hannah Thorogood. You can hear more from her and Inkpot Farm this Sunday morning in On Your Farm. That's at 6:30 here on BBC Radio 4. Now, skincare with extract of potato. Potato shores, the green leaves from the top of seed potato plants, are currently discarded or ploughed back into the soil. But the University of Aberdeen reckons they could be put to a more lucrative use in skin creams. Something called solenosol is found in these leaves. It's already used in a range of cosmetics and pharmaceutical products and is mainly extracted from tobacco plants. Researchers hope that potatoes could offer a more sustainable source and reduce agricultural waste while boosting farm incomes. Heather Wilson is Professor of Immunology at Aberdeen University.
Potato shaws are usually a byproduct of the seed potato industry. They're just cut and they're just discarded in the field. And these waste straws has untapped potential for high-value compounds. Now, one of these compounds is solenosol. So this is an extract, and it's a compound vital for producing coenzyme Q10 and vitamin K2. Now, these are key ingredients in the cosmeceutical, nutraceutical and pharmaceutical industry.
So that's cosmetics, I'm imagining supplements and things, and medicines.
Yeah, so cosmetics like face creams is the one we're particularly interested in. Nutraceuticals are a sort of natural food products that have benefit. And then for the pharmaceutical products, it can be drugs for migraines, for example, or the cardiovascular system.
Now, at the moment, as I understand it, most of this comes from tobacco plants. Do the potato shores have the same sort of level of solenosol, and is it harder to get it out of these potato leaves than it is to get it out of tobacco?
The harvest of solenosol is being done at the James Hutton Institute, and they are looking at the moment to develop methods where they can scale up. As far as I understand, it's just the same as taking it out of tobacco plants as the potato plants. The things we need to discover at the moment is the best way of storing the potato shaws and the best type of potatoes to get this from. But we're very hopeful that this is a good source And again, it's reducing waste and cutting our carbon emissions and creating new income stream for Scottish farmers.
And I'm sure that's the question that all the Scottish farmers are asking. How much could this be worth?
We're still at early stages yet. This is the initial stage of the project, seeing how best we can get this out, what the yield is, what the purity is, how it compares with the tobacco plants, and how financially viable it would be to scale up to the levels that we can get from the tobacco plants. It'll be quite a few years before we see the home-produced Solanisol being sold to the cosmetic industry, but we are hopeful that this will be a good source of income from these waste products in the future.
Professor Heather Wilson from Aberdeen University. All this week we've been looking at dairy farming. Farmers are currently dealing with falling prices for milk as world commodity prices slump. There is an exception to that. The prices organic farmers are getting has remained stable, and sales of organic milk products have increased slightly in the last 12 months. Well, Step Farm in Oxfordshire was one of the first dairies in the country to be registered as organic. Jack Saunders is the fifth generation farmer there, looking after a 400-strong herd of Holstein Friesian and Danish Reds. Marie Lennon has been to meet him.
I love to sort of talk about the history of the family on this farm. We've been here 98 years now. Been organic since 1982. Was quite controversial at the time. I'm so passionate about it. It'll certainly be organic for my whole generation.
And yeah, 1982, so that was an era of aerial spraying, and the industry was all about what you can use, how you can increase your yields by protecting against absolutely everything. What was going on the farm here back then?
My grandmother is a very strong-willed lady. She really had a bee in a bonnet about aerial spraying and how inaccurate it can be. They thought, well, one year, let's just not do it and see what happens. And the following year, the yields dropped, but they only dropped the value of the sprays and fertiliser that we were putting on. So the net margin was exactly the same. We sort of took that on and went along with the cows, with the organic milk, starting with milk contracts to M&S. Helped set up the organic milk cooperative.
Why is it so important for you, and why does it work?
Organic's kind of perceived as being, in my eyes, a lot of people see it as potentially a bit behind the times. We can make as much, if not more, money out of doing what we do, along with all the other benefits of the wildlife and all the soil benefits, and I don't really see the negatives.
Where are we off to now, Jack?
Going to go up to milking parlour that was put in 2009.
So afternoon milking is going to be starting quite soon. And let's talk a bit about the product and where it goes.
We've been supplying Barkey Dairies in Swindon now for 2 years. It's quite heavily focused on doorstep deliveries and kefir and yoghurts and butters and that sort of stuff. People can pick our milk up. It's honestly gone no more than 10 miles. It's quite heartwarming, really, keeping that really close, tight link and being able to almost sell your own product off the shelf.
What does it mean for you price-wise? Does it mean that you are a bit more protected from some of the global variables when it comes to organic milk price?
Yes and no. I think we're lucky our milk buyer has a good understanding of farming. He's a farmer himself. But we are, of course, still open to global markets. This year, we've been looking at a pretty consistent milk price, certainly the last 6 months. The conventional milk price is dropping. There's a fair chance organic will follow. Certainly over the last 2 or 3 years, there has been a shortage in supply of organic milk, and so the milk price has reflected that.
Dairy farmer Jack Saunders there. 36% of people who live in rural areas or on islands in Scotland are considering leaving, blaming a range of things from healthcare and ferries to housing shortages. The majority, who plan to stay, praise the strong community spirit and quality of life. These are the findings of a new study from Scotland's Rural College. Researchers say rural and island areas of Scotland continue to face population decline and have looked at what happens in other countries, Canada, Sweden and Croatia, to see what might change that situation. Dr. Anna Winship is one of the report's authors.
We did a survey of approximately 400 people. Most of the people are not really interested in leaving the area. But if they choose to leave, it's usually because they almost feel like they're forced by some external factors, which are usually tied to infrastructure, transportation, economic opportunities, education, or employment.
Hasn't this been the case for a very long time, particularly when it comes to islands?
Absolutely. So one of the reasons why we are doing this specific project is because we are trying to tackle 3 persistent challenges that have been present for a very long time globally. And those are the challenges of housing, demographic change, and social exclusion and marginalization in rural and island areas. And what we are trying to do here is capture what is the current state of things and then dedicate next 2 years into looking into the future and how can we use this knowledge to improve the situation.
A lot of the things that people mentioned, healthcare, ferries, they are very difficult things to change, aren't they?
Yes, they are. Those are some essential services, and healthcare is the backbone of every community. And if you do not have access to healthcare, you can't expect communities to survive long term. So in terms of that and ferries, which are connection to mainland, which in many cases in communities nowadays are connection to services, connection to healthcare, education, shops even, you can really see why ferries are absolutely crucial part of this equation.
We should point out, though, that the majority of people that you spoke to actually will put up with the downsides because of the upsides in living in these areas, particularly things like community spirit.
I think that's a fair statement, and I think lots of people would be willing to make that trade-off. However, the challenge then lies in having a realistic expectation in terms of what is available in that community. And sometimes the sense of community and all of these benefits you can get in these communities are overseen or they're not properly captured because they're very difficult to measure. However, they shouldn't be underestimated.
Scotland isn't alone in this, and you did look at other areas around the world. What lessons might we be able to learn?
I think the most valuable lesson would be that there should be a collaboration of multiple stakeholders, and also communities should have a voice in what's happening with them. In Canada, for example, it was a provincial program. And while at face value it seemed very successful, the retention rates were not that great, because the integration stage was kind of left hanging in the air, and lots of local communities and community members were expected to pick up the volunteering aspect of it. So they were supposed to volunteer, or they were expected to kind of like help people integrate. And then in Sweden, it was really interesting because they had a PR company and they had kind of a local authority working together, trying to get people they perceived would be a really good fit. But they also couldn't retain all of that population that came in. And then the Croatian example was fairly interesting because it was a bottom-up initiative started by a local mayor that was from the island and his friends when they came back to the island after they finished their university. What they did, they started a program that was focused on retention of the local youth under the mantra, "Children are gold." They basically put all of their resources into trying to get all these initiatives, like funding the kindergartens, and they are doing better than the national average. However, they still haven't achieved full demographic recovery.
Dr. Anna Winship. And that's it from us. I'm Charlotte Smith. The producer is Rebecca Rooney, and Farming Today is a BBC Audio Bristol production.